Hey guys, Quackerjack here. Recently, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to take a 2019 Kawasaki Z650, the Lambs model, out for a day to ride and review. I rode it in every type of environment I could, from around town and highway riding to the local twisty mountain roads where I could really open up the tap and explore just what this middleweight naked bike had to offer. So after spending a full day with the bike, I've broken down into a few categories my review of the 2019 Kawasaki Z650L. We'll be discussing what I did and didn't like about the bike, how it fares in different areas and situations, and stick around to the end to find out my verdict on Kawasaki's middleweight naked motorcycle. So let's get straight into it. The styling. When I first saw the Z650 in person, I have to admit I wasn't overly impressed or excited about the styling of the bike. However, as time went on and the more I looked at it, I really did start to appreciate the design of this bike a bit more. It uses Kawasaki's Tsugomi brand of styling. Tsugomi is a Japanese word that describes the intense aura or energy given off by a person or object of greatness and felt by the viewer. Someone or something possessing Tsugomi inspires awe, leaves an indelible impression, is daunting in stature or ability, and commands respect. Now, that's straight from the Kawasaki website, and I'll let you be the judge if you think this bike lives up to that namesake. I have seen the Z650 in other color schemes where it does really look cool and eye-catching, but in this white and black, it doesn't really do a whole lot for me, especially with the rather boring front end. The latest update to this model has fixed this, however, and I think they have achieved the Tsugomi that they were looking for. I do really like the side angle view with those aggressive yet sleek lines that is very reminiscent of the bigger, badder Z1000 or even the ZH2. The Z shape of the rear brake lights is also a nice touch. When sitting on the bike, the two small side panels wrap around the front to look almost like a pincer, and this is a design feature that I do personally like. Another thing that I appreciate is the relatively low-key underbody exhaust. Kawasaki has a habit of slapping some huge cans on their bikes, and I've never been a fan of that look. The exhaust on this bike isn't as bold as those big cans, and it fits nicely with the aesthetic of the Tsugomi styling. The overall fit and finish of the bike is pretty good too, with everything feeling sturdy and of good quality. Overall for this Z650, I'd have to give the styling a 6.5 out of 10. However, I believe the latest models have bumped that up to a 7.5, so we'll meet in the middle for a solid 7. Comfort and ergonomics. This is an area where the Z650 does mostly well. From the moment I sat on the bike, I felt comfortable and secure. The seating position on this bike is very upright and stable, and there is no pressure on your wrists whatsoever. The seat is large, and while a bit hard, still comfortable, and there is lots of room to scooch back and forth. I am on the large side at 6 feet tall, or 185 centimeters, and around 90 kilograms, and I felt that I fit well onto the bike. No cramping or feeling tight. I see this bike being really appealing to an older audience that doesn't want the lean forward attack position of a sport bike. The Z650 would make a terrific daily commuter just because it's so easy to ride and how comfortable of a seating position you're in. The suspension aids in this as it glides over majority of bumps or rougher roads with ease. You could definitely do a lot of miles on this bike. There were times where I saw a rough patch on the road which I instinctively clenched for, but the Z650 reassuredly passed over it and said, no, it's okay, I got you. I did, however, experience a noticeable amount of vibration from the bike, mainly through the handles, pegs, and mirrors, which I oftentimes found myself moving a hand to steady. It's not terrible, but it is noticeable enough to be mentioned. Also, speaking of mirrors, the actual shape of them themselves are pretty decent and you can see a lot. However, the placement of them is very close to you, so to actually see them, you have to avert your gaze from the road and move your head, which is not ideal. The turn signals are also a little small, and I did accidentally hit the horn trying to use them, but once I knew where they were, I had no issues. The dash itself is very small, but easy to read, and I had no trouble with it. This has been updated to a TFT display in the latest model. The only other thing that I will touch on for comfort and ergonomics is that due to this being a naked bike, there is obviously no windscreen. This was only really noticeable when on the highway at speed, where you do feel a lot of wind pushing against you. So if you're planning on doing a lot of miles on the highway, it may be worthwhile looking to pick up an aftermarket screen. Otherwise, there was no issues. The bike also features a 5-way adjustable clutch lever, which is a nice addition. For comfort and ergonomics, the Z650 gets a good score of 7 out of 10. Engine and power. Here's the bike's real party piece. The Kawasaki Z650L is a Lambs, or Learner Approved Motorcycle Scheme in Australia, which means that it is in line with restrictions to keep power under a certain amount. This can be unrestricted later on by a mechanic, but it ensures that a new learner doesn't jump straight onto a bike that will send them to the moon. Both the Z650 and Z650L have a 649cc liquid-cooled parallel twin engine that without restrictions produces 59.9 horsepower at 8,000 RPM and 48.5 foot-pounds of torque at 6,500 RPM. On this Lambs model, those numbers were a little less at 51.9 horsepower and 43.5 foot-pounds of torque at the same revs as before. While that may not sound like a whole lot, because this bike is so light and the way that torque is delivered so down low, it makes this motorcycle a lot of fun in everyday riding. In almost every gear, pulling the throttle at even a low rev count will produce a smooth powertrain and satisfying pull. It's also enough to get this bike moving from 0 to 60 miles per hour in a claimed 3.5 seconds, which is fast enough to pull away from anything but the fastest of sports cars on the road. I often say that anything above an engine of this size and you can't get everything out of it on the regular roads. But with the Z650 you can. It has more than enough power to pass other vehicles, cruise down the highway, and to put a huge grin on your face while pinning the throttle through the twisties. That low down grunt gives this bike its Street Fighter appeal, and after handing the motorbike back at the end of the day, it was that smooth torquey power delivery that I knew I was going to miss the most. The Z650 has enough power to keep you entertained for a long time, and could be all that someone ever needs. I especially enjoyed hearing the engine wind up crossing over 5,000 revs, and that deep growl start to emerge. The Z650 has a great exhaust note, and this over the time of being with the bike was definitely one of my favourite parts about it. Even from low down in the range, there is a growl that when you go above 5,000 RPM starts to become very prominent. It's a bassy tone and does sound pretty mean. There's a video available on my channel for more sound clips and a decibel reading of the exhaust. Overall, for engine and power, the Z650 gets an 8 out of 10. Now let's talk about handling. This is a middleweight naked bike that has a claimed weight of 187 kilograms or 412 pounds wet and a very upright and stable seating position. Unlike some sports bikes where you can feel that the weight is in front of you, on the Z650 I found that I felt directly on top of majority of the weight. What that meant for me when riding is that the bike liked and did very well to keep itself upright and stable. However, when pushing the bike into a corner, it almost falls in. For new riders, and for the first few times I took it around a sharper bend, this could be a strange feeling, not knowing just how far over the bike would go when leaning. However, once you get used to this feeling, the Z650 flows through the bends with ease and grace. I never felt like the bike was attacking the corners, more that it was gliding through them, soaking them up, and then asking for more. If a new beginner were to get on this bike for the first time, there may be a learning curve when going for more spirited rides, but once you get it, you get it. It's almost like an, oh, that's how it wants to be ridden sort of moment, where you realize that the bike is happy to achieve some acute angles and make sure you are using it to its fullest. I had a great time riding through the local mountain roads, and the bike consistently put a big smile on my face. This is also in part to the slipper clutch, which is a nice addition to the bike and allows you to smoothly transition through the gears and let you focus on enjoying your ride. This wasn't the only area that the bike excelled in though. Around town riding with the upright seating position was very easy, and I didn't find myself getting tired or arm sore. And as mentioned earlier, it glides over rougher patches with ease. It also did very well on the highway, where it stayed planted and was not easily pushed around the lane by wind as some others can be. So sure, while it doesn't feel as aggressive as a bike from Kawasaki's Ninja lineup in the corners, it still handles them very well and inspires the confidence to tackle twisty roads. And that's what I believe Kawasaki had intended this bike to be like. For handling, the Z650 gets an 8 out of 10. Brakes. I found the brakes on the Z650 to be solid overall. It features a single 220mm disc with single piston caliper at the rear and twin 300mm discs with dual piston calipers at the front. Both include ABS, which, especially on a Lambs bike, is a big plus. As I find with a few of the bikes from Kawasaki though, the rear brake is nothing special and can feel soft and a bit spongy. However, with the dual discs at the front, it gives adequate stopping power and enough to confidently brake and be able to ride deep into a corner. That is something that more experienced riders will appreciate, and beginner riders can work up to. That, along with the powertrain, gives the bike some long-term appeal, and it can definitely be a bike that someone learns on and progresses with in their riding ability. For the brakes of the Z650, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Price and value for money. Here in Australia, directly from the Kawasaki website, the right-of-way cost for a 2019 Z650L was quoted at $10,121. However, looking at bike sales, I managed to find some dealer demo models for $8,990, and if you're willing to buy used, even cheaper models for under $8,000. For that money, you get a punchy engine, decent brakes with ABS on a well-finished and fun motorcycle. In my opinion, the Z650 offers a great amount of value for money. The question has to be asked though, as this is a Lambs bike and will be appealing to first-time riders, is $8,000 to $10,000 too much to spend on your first motorbike? And the answer is maybe. For a younger rider, $8,000 to $10,000 for their first bike may be a bit too pricey, and they could be better off with a 400cc model such as the Ninja or Z400 for a few grand less. For an older audience though, I think this bike offers real value and appeal. Due to the seating position and all the power you would ever realistically need on the streets, this could be a perfect daily rider that you take up to the hills on the weekend. For value for money, I give the Z650L a 7.5. So to wrap it up, the Z650L overall offers a compelling package, with decent styling, especially in other color variants, a great torquey engine that offers a lot of fun both around town and in the hills, along with a smooth and comfortable ride. This bike could very easily be your long-term daily commuter. It has more than enough engine and braking power to keep learning riders, as well as more experienced riders, entertained for a long time. Taking into account the buzzy vibrations that can sometimes pop up, a price that may deter some younger riders, and accepting that you may not have the most eye-catching bike on the road, Kawasaki has done a solid job at making the Z650L a high-quality bike that provides a good amount of value. Adding all of those scores together gives the Z650L a total of 44 out of 60, which averages out to be 7.3 out of 10. And I think that's a fair score. I really enjoyed my time with the Z650L and I could recommend it. Thanks for making it to this point of the video, guys. Do you own this bike? Are you looking to pick one up? Let me know your opinions on it. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a like, comment and subscribe, and come have a chat with me on our Instagram page at quackerjack_. I really appreciate all the engagement on the videos and can't wait to bring you more reviews when I get my hands on some more bikes. Till next time guys, see ya!